In the heart of Africa, in the village of Amurus, tales of the shadow people had been whispered for centuries. It was said they were not mere stories but warnings, beings that lived in the spaces between light and darkness, watching, waiting, and sometimes taking. No one dared to speak of them openly, for fear that speaking their name might draw their attention. The villagers lived by strict rules to avoid the shadows. Never walk alone at night. Never let your shadow fall into the forest. And most importantly, never, ever look into their eyes. But every now and then, someone would break the rules and vanish. The story begins with Amora, a headstrong 19-year-old girl who never believed in the old tales. She lived with her grandmother, Mama Ifeoma, the village's most revered storyteller. Mama Ifeoma was wise but frail, and every evening, she would sit under the old baobab tree, surrounded by villagers eager to hear her stories. One evening, as the fire crackled and the night air grew heavy, Mama Ifeoma told the tale of the shadow people. They were once like us, she began, her voice low and steady. But their greed and betrayal turned them into what they are now. Shadows that walk, eyes that see everything. And once they choose you, there is no escape. The villagers shuddered, but Amora rolled her eyes. "Grandma, these are just stories to scare children," she said after the crowd dispersed. Mama Ifeoma looked at her with a strange sadness. "Child, there is truth in every story. You'll see one day." The next day, Amora and her best friend, Obi, ventured into the forest to fetch water from the river. It was late afternoon, and the sun hung low in the sky. They laughed and talked, carefree, until Amora noticed something odd. The trees cast long shadows, but one of them moved unnaturally, twisting and stretching as though alive. "Obi, look," she whispered, grabbing his arm. At first, he saw nothing, but then the shadow darted across the path, moving faster than any animal. It stopped briefly, and they saw its red eyes glowing from within the darkness. "What is that?" Obi whispered, his voice trembling. "I don't know, but we need to go," Amora replied, her heart pounding. They ran back to the village as fast as their legs could carry them. That night, Amora couldn't sleep. The air in her room felt heavy, and every flicker of her lantern seemed to stretch into strange shapes. As she turned over in bed, she felt it, a presence. Slowly, she opened her eyes and froze. At the foot of her bed stood a shadowy figure, tall and thin, with eyes like burning coals. It didn't move, but Amora felt its gaze pierce through her. She screamed, and the figure vanished as Mama Ifeoma rushed into the room. "They've chosen you," Mama Ifeoma said, her voice trembling. "Who? What are they?" Amora cried. "The shadow people. They want something from you, and they won't stop until they get it." Desperate for answers, Mama Ifeoma took Amora and Obi to see Papa Ikin, the village's oldest elder. He lived alone on the outskirts, surrounded by charms and talismans meant to ward off evil. Papa Ikin listened to their story and then told them a chilling tale. Long ago, the shadow people were humans, villagers who had betrayed their community for power. They were cursed to live in the shadows, forever watching the living. But sometimes, they mark someone to join them. "Why would they mark me?" Amora asked, her voice shaking. Papa Ikin's gaze was piercing. "They don't choose randomly. There's something they want from you." Determined to end the hunting, Amora and Obi followed Papa Ikin's advice to find the shadow people's lair, a hidden cave deep in the forest. Armed with nothing but a lantern and their courage, they ventured into the darkness. Papa Ikin gave them instructions to find the shadow people's lair, a hidden cave deep in the forest. Armed with a lantern and a handful of charms, Amora and Obi set out. The journey was long and treacherous, the forest growing darker and more oppressive with every step. When they finally found the cave, its entrance was almost invisible, hidden beneath thick vines and moss. Inside, the air was cold, and the walls were covered in ancient carvings. The carvings told a story, a group of villagers surrounded by shadows, and in the center, a woman who looked exactly like Mama Ifeoma. "What is this?" Obi whispered, his voice echoing. Before Amora could respond, they saw it, a small stone altar at the center of the cave. On it lay a glowing orb, pulsating with dark energy. "This is what they want," Amora said, stepping closer. But as she reached out, the shadows came alive. Dozens of figures emerged from the walls, their red eyes glowing, their whispers growing louder. "Amora! Amora!" Amora froze, but Obi grabbed her arm. "We need to go," he shouted. "No," Amora said, her voice steady. "This ends now." She grabbed the orb, and the shadows screamed, their whispers turning into a deafening roar. The ground shook, and the walls of the cave began to crack. With all her strength, Amora hurled the orb to the ground, shattering it into a million pieces. The shadows dissolved into nothingness, and the cave fell silent. When they returned to the village, Mama Ifeoma was waiting for them. She looked relieved but weary. "You've broken their curse," she said. "What curse?" Amora demanded. Mama Ifeoma hesitated, then said, "Long ago, I was one of them. I made a deal to protect this village, but the price was my freedom. They wanted you because you're my blood." Amora stared at her grandmother in shock. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I hoped you'd never have to know," Mama Ifeoma said softly. "But now, it's over. Or so I hope." For weeks, life in the village returned to normal. But one night, as Amora sat by the fire, she noticed something strange. Her shadow moved, not with her, but on its own. And in the darkness, she thought she saw two glowing red eyes watching her. Are the shadow people truly gone? Or have they just found someone new to lead them?